I kind of want to touch on a point here of like in this topic that a lot of people are talking about called tipflation, tip invasion, whatever it might be. You're seeing it all over like social media as well too. Tons of jokes being made about it. It's like every kind of action now, or like any interaction with the POS, all of a sudden suddenly asks you for like a tip, and like in restaurants, it makes total sense when you think about servers, bartenders, etc. Right? It's a
That's
service industry, but like I was at a concert this past weekend, and at the merch table, somebody like when we bought this sweater, they literally just turned around, picked up the sweater, handed it to me, and then they prompted for tip, and I was like, what happened here? Like this is not an interaction that is tippable.
yeah.
I think that before, like I think that maybe when we think about generations and all that, like the idea before with tips is like we were thinking about like exceptional service, and you're trying to like and like in some part ways like you're because there's like a person involved with this, like you're showing like a kind of like an appreciation for like that this is like being done by a human, right? Also too,
Did you
but
tip?
also just exceptional service as well. But like when you think about it now, there's so much automation in all of these things that you're wondering like, what am I really tipping for? Like, who is this tip going to? Like when I tip that merch table person, is it going, that's like a staff member of like the stadium, it's not like a staff member of like the band or anything like that. It's like, who is this going to? What is it going towards? Like eventually at the doctor's office, will I have to tip there too? Like how far does this continue to go down that hole? And I think that this tip situation that's happening with the POSs and whatnot, like there's always prompting this, like it's going to have a negative impact on the restaurants. And this is also what I'm reading out there as well too, is that like when people are going to just get overwhelmed by like how much tipping is going to be happening there. Even like also like there's like some restaurants like by default it'll have like 30% like highlighted, like it just keeps like moving up. It used to be like 15% was the norm, then 20% the norm. And so like people are just like I think that the question you beg here, like you're asking here, is like, do people like should tipping be the norm? Should would people rather just pay like more for like the food that
Yeah.
they're ordering rather than doing a tip at the end of all of it? I think they bring a lot of questions, and there's a lot of psychological things that are happening here where like automation is potentially going to cause people to kind of like start to step back a little bit and say like they're going to really start thinking about the kind of tips that they're giving for stuff.
So
That's
did
my
you
take
tip
on
or
it.
did you not tip for your merch? Just really quickly.
Oh, Amanda bought it. She tipped it. She was like,
She
because there's
tipped.
no, they don't
So
even have the $0 option on the screen. You have to go
yes.
custom and type in a zero. Like that, they know what they're doing here. They know what they're
So
doing
Yeah.
so
here.
so you and Amanda are part of the 51% that according to this study were actually convinced to tip by being prompted by an iPad or
But
digital
now we're angry.
display.
Now I'm
No,
angry
they're
and talking
forced.
about it. So I
They
think I'm
were
going to
forced to
change it.
tip.
Now I'm going to
I
be
think.
Yeah.
changing it.
Listen, who taught us how to wear our tie, right? Either it was our parents or a friend, and for the next generation, it's YouTube, right? In fact, I learned a lot of things on YouTube, like how to tie my tie, right? What is the difference between an Oxford versus a Derby, right? A lot of things your dad was supposed to teach you, you're supposed to like we learn on YouTube, right? And I think the next generation is UI UX, right? I think when you go to the Uber Eats app and you order food, you know what is the baseline for tipping? It's 15%. I think it's 20%. I think it's 15 or 20%, most likely 20. That's the base. Is that what we were thought to tip for delivery? Right? No, it was not, right? It's closer to 10, right? The education is, hey, it's closer to 10% or $10 or 5 to $10, closer to 10%. But the system is educating a whole new generation that is 20% base. So now what is supposed to be a dine-in tip, a dine-in good job tip is 20%, which is you came to me when I needed to, you asked me, you upsold me, you were nice to me, you educated me about the history of the restaurant, you walked me to the fucking bathroom, right? All of that is 20%. Now we're saying if you deliver the food, it's also 20%. I think the problem, as always, is fucking technology. It's a bunch of fucking nerds who are sitting in Silicon Valley who don't know anything, who are fucking all like 300K paid engineers, these fucking losers, and their project managers who get paid even more so than those losers get together and say, how do we take care of people? Let's not pay them, but let's make sure that the consumer is paying them more. Let's not actually have a system where we're not robbing restaurants 30%, and giving any of it to the driver properly. Let's make sure the end consumer does it. How do we do it? Let's change the UI UX to go ahead and make sure the base is 20%, right? So I think that's the problem. And I think the problem is, our parents are no longer in the picture to educate us about all the nitty gritties, as they're not supposed to be. That's the point of tech. And now we're getting educated by technology, and the education is this is normal. You didn't know? We knew in Silicon Valley, right? On our 8 sleep mattress and our athletic greens every morning and our Aura ring and all the other shitty Silicon Valley things we do. We're out of touch, but let us tell you how you can help people. Be kind, right? Hashtag. So that's my rant on why Tipflation is happening, because tech people fucking suck. I'm
Yeah,
not a tech
well,
person, by the way.
food. So the top three tip workers to be, according to again this study, is first it's restaurant with table service. So I think you'll be happy to discover your sweetheart your sweetheart workers are at the top, but food delivery workers have jumped to second now. So Uber Eats, DoorDash, they've jumped to second now, which is pretty close. It's getting pretty. They're right next to what should be the most like tip service. And number three is actually hairstylists and barbers.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that has been a tipping culture for a long time.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel good about
Valet.
tipping my barber. I'll just say that.
I personally,
Do you
He
tip your barber extra for the eyebrow thing you do?
Oh, I do that myself. I tip him for doing a good job despite being inebriated at some times when I go on Friday and Saturday. He always just turns me around. I can't see it. Then he's like drinking, he's dancing, doing the bachata. Then he turns me around and it looks decent. So that's what the tip is for.
Doesn't sound like my barber. Gabby?
I would say I personally tip a lot just because I was a waitress at some point, and so I know how hard it is to be like a restaurant worker. Um, but one of the things I noticed when it came to like the pandemic and delivery, and the reason I think this is spiking up is because I think that delivery workers are thinking about how do I make the delivery experience better for the consumer. So like one of the things that I noticed recently, on like the app, you can choose whether you want it to be left at the door, whether you want it to be handed to you. And so I usually just say just leave it at the door. But I think some delivery workers take an extra step. They wait for you to actually come out, get your food, and then they'll leave. And I personally like really appreciate that. I'm like, wow, this person could have just like took another session, but he decided to stay with me and make sure I got my food. I think he went above and beyond, and I gave him extra tip. So I think little things like that, because obviously food gets stolen, especially if you're in New York City. Things like that have been ways that restaurant workers could say, okay, how can I go above and beyond? And so I actually think it's a good thing that we're able to, tip them, and they still have that, touch to the customer. Like, hey, I waited for your food.
I wonder,
Um,
is that our expectations lowering though? I guess in some ways, like you think about like what it was like I ordered pizza back in the day. Pizza delivery guy, he was there at the door, go handing me my pizza. I gave him $5 or whatever it is. I'm wondering if is there
The five
like
bucks.
our lowering
Yeah.
expectations and what is a typical kind of experience maybe is like also
yeah,
changing
but I think
based
when
on
you
like
say
and that
like
might be
leave
changing
it
for
at the door,
generation.
like you're basically saying, okay, like I don't care if it gets stolen or not. Like I choose for you to leave it at the door. You can leave, you could stay, whatever you want. I just want you to leave it
Can
at the
I
door.
can I just describe Andrew? When Andrew was tipping $5, he was being generous because they were getting paid hourly. They had a base pay from the restaurant. They were the restaurant staff. Now when they work for Grubhub, they don't get paid similarly. So I don't think the consumers understand how the person is getting paid. And if I think the consumers understood, they could do some simple math. And I think what Lunchbox needs to do is provide a article with clarity on what staff is getting paid and what we recommend they should get what we recommend they should get paid. Right? I think we need to do some education here. Like always, like our job is to educate the consumer and educate the restaurant space. I think we need to collect all the numbers and very clearly lay out what should a Grubhub driver get paid versus DoorDash, because they're not the same, right? I think this is an opportunity for us to continue to do some work here.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is you always want to incentivize anyone, any worker, for, like to go above and beyond. So if they're just getting paid like everyone else, they don't have an incentive to go above and beyond. So they don't get a promotion or like a salary
Half the
raise.
yeah, and Gabby, half the people that go to a Panera or Chipotle do not tip. And the best tippers out there today are actually baby boomers, which makes sense. They held most of the cash and most of the wealth in the world. But out of all the generations, 86% of people consider themselves to be a good tipper, which is, people think they're tipping well, but some are not. And most people just want to do away with it altogether and just add it to wages. I personally, I think if I think it's a way to like invite you in to spend, because if you see a $10 burger versus a 13 $15 burger, I don't know if you'll go into the restaurant, right? Maybe you'll be a shitty person and not tip, but at least you'll get a $10 burger. Maybe you can't afford it. That's the other. I don't know if it'll price out people. It always sucks.